Hello friends, how are you feeling tonight? I hope your body is relaxed and your mind is calm. Tonight, we were traveling back to a time when the American West was alive with promise, a land of gold and dust, where dreamers built towns from nothing, and then quietly, those towns disappeared. Their streets still stand beneath the desert sun, their windows whisper in the wind, and sometimes it feels as if the walls still remember the laughter, the hope, and the heartbreak that once filled them. This is the story of those forgotten places, the ghost towns that once breathed with life and the people who left their voices behind in the dust. Stay with me as we walk through the silent saloons, the empty churches, and the windswept roads of the American West, listening for echoes of a time that will never return. If you enjoy this quiet journey through history, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from tonight? The road stretched endlessly beneath the pale light of a setting sun, winding through the dry ribs of a forgotten land, dust rising behind the wheels like faint ghosts drifting across the desert, and the sky itself holding its breath, as if time had paused for a moment between memory and oblivion. There was no sound except the soft hum of the engine and the occasional whisper of wind against the cracked windshield, sending tiny grains of sand skating across the glass, catching the last rays of light before they disappeared over the horizon. The traveler drove on in quiet contemplation, not searching for treasure or fame, but for something that could not be measured, something that could only be found in the silence of places abandoned by history. Every mile brought him closer to that silence, and yet the air seemed heavier, thicker, as if the land itself remembered the lives that had once passed through it. Leaning telegraph poles lined the road like tired sentinels. Dry sage bushes trembled in the warm breeze, and a rusted water tower appeared suddenly, skeletal against the fading light, a monument to ambitions long forgotten. Somewhere beyond the horizon lay a town that had once breathed with life, its name half erased from maps, its streets silent, its buildings skeletal. Silver Vein, they called it, founded by men with pickaxes and hope, swallowed by dust and quiet, before anyone could truly understand what they had built. The traveler paused at the edge of a small rise, the valley below opening like a book no one had read for decades. Wooden roofs caved in, a church spire leaning as if bowing to the wind, a single windmill still standing stubbornly, its blades creaking faintly as the air nudged them. The sight was both desolate and strangely beautiful, a reminder that life once surged here and had been withdrawn, leaving only echoes in the stones and sand. He stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath boots that hadn't moved here for nearly a century. The air carried a subtle scent of dust and old pine, mixed with something unplaceable, a memory almost within reach, and as he walked down the main street, the remnants of signs hung on broken frames. General store, faint letters peeling and curling. A saloon door swung slightly on its hinges with the breath of the wind. The faint smell of whiskey and pine lingering. A piano cornered in the dark, its keys broken and missing. Yet the wind passing through made a mournful song, a melody of absence. He moved on, his fingers tracing the grooves in a fence post, carved initials and tiny symbols left by hands long gone. Names and prayers etched in the grain. A simple human attempt to leave a mark, a note to someone, or perhaps a note to nothing. He entered what had once been the church, the door groaning like an old man rising from a chair, benches scattered, hymn books torn, and on the altar, a small lantern still stood upright, its glass cracked, but holding the memory of light. He knelt to touch the wooden pews, imagining families gathered here, children leaning on their parents, the preacher's voice calm and certain, miners coughing from dust and fatigue. The church had been witness to everything, birth and death, joy and sorrow, and even now, though no one remained, it seemed alive with echoes as he walked into the graveyard behind the church. Wooden crosses leaning in the twilight, names weathered almost to illegibility, one plaque standing out, iron polished by wind and sand. Eleanor Whitfield, 1878-1902. She sang through the storm. He knelt, the name lingering like a soft note of music he had never heard before. Who was she, and why had her grave endured alone? The stars began to pierce the sky, and he lit his own lantern, placing it beside her grave, the desert breathing slowly around him. He opened a brittle journal found earlier in the general store, pages yellowed, handwriting small and deliberate. Entry dated October 3rd, 1902. They buried Eleanor today. The men stopped work. Even the foreman bowed his head. Some say she knew the mine would take them all. She sang that night before it collapsed, sang until the ground shook. The wind shifted, carrying a faint hum again, gentle, a lullaby almost. He looked up and saw nothing but shadows of buildings. Yet in that emptiness, he felt her presence, soft and enduring. He wrote in his notebook, every stroke deliberate. Perhaps the ghosts of Silver Vein never truly left. Perhaps they wait in the wind, in the dust, in the silence, for someone willing to remember. He rose slowly, the lantern swaying, casting long moving shadows over the graveyard and the town, the night deepening, the desert cool against his skin, the wind whispering through broken doors, broken windows. And he realized the town's memory was stronger than its buildings, that in absence there was presence, in silence there was song. He walked back down the main street, listening, imagining, feeling the heartbeat of a town that once had life. And as he stepped back into his car, the valley stretched behind him, vast and quiet, the stars blinking, a pale moon rising over distant hills, carrying with it centuries of wind and whispers. And he knew, even before driving away, that Silver Vein would haunt him gently, like a melody remembered just at the edge of sleep. As the engine hummed and he disappeared along the winding road, the town waiting, watching, silent, yet alive in memory. The wind carried him further down the deserted streets of Silver Vein, each step stirring the fine powder of sand that had settled over decades. The buildings on either side sagging under the weight of years and neglect. Windows broken, shutters hanging like tired eyelids. Yet in their decay they seemed to speak, whispering of laughter, of hammers striking metal, of children running between houses, their small voices bouncing off wooden walls. The saloon door swayed again, a gentle creak as if it remembered the songs of piano keys long since silenced. The scent of old whiskey, pine, and candle wax still lingered faintly, stirring memories of evenings where miners and their families had gathered to share news, music, and fleeting joy. He traced his fingers along the edge of the general store sign, the paint flaking and curling, imagining the shopkeeper arranging tins and jars, calling out prices, welcoming familiar faces with a nod, the sound of horse hooves on dirt outside, the laughter of children chasing each other around barrels and crates, and he pictured the dusty streets alive, the town breathing in rhythm with the lives it held. The church spire leaned a little more with the passing years, but he could see the rows of pews inside, the flicker of lantern light from Sundays long gone, families kneeling in prayer, songs sung softly, voices mingling with the quiet of the desert outside. He walked past the old blacksmith shop, the forge cold now, but in his mind he could see the flames dancing, the sparks flying as a hammer struck iron, shaping tools, horseshoes, and dreams alike. And he imagined the smith's hands, rough and steady, guiding molten metal with care, sweat on his brow, the smell of burning coal, and the pride in seeing a job done well. Each building he passed told a story. A miner's home with a swing still creaking under the faintest breeze, a kitchen with broken shelves, dishes cracked and scattered, and a fireplace dark. Yet it had once roared with warmth, laughter, and the smell of bread baking. He paused before a small schoolhouse, its door half open, a bell silent, the playground empty. But he could see children sitting at wooden desks, slates on their knees, teachers moving quietly among them, chalk scratching across blackboards, the air filled with the curious hum of young minds learning about the world beyond the desert. He moved on to the outskirts of the town where the mine shafts yawned, dark and deep. The entrance partially collapsed, but still whispering of toil, sweat, and danger, miners descending each day into the earth, lanterns bobbing like captured stars, picks striking stone, the clatter of carts on wooden rails, and in the night, the creak of beams shifting under pressure, all mingled into a rhythm of life that had vanished. but remained. If one listened closely, he could hear it, the pulse of work and hope vibrating faintly through the air. He paused at the edge of the cemetery once more, the crosses leaning, the names, faint, Eleanor Whitfield still standing. But now he noticed more graves, of families, couples, children, miners who had lived and died here. Each stone a testament to the lives that had been, the dreams that had been built in laughter and sweat and faded into dust. The desert night deepened, stars above like scattered lanterns from some forgotten celebration, the wind carrying their faint light across rooftops, over broken fences, and through the empty streets. He imagined the town alive again, every shadow holding a memory, every creak of wood, a voice from the past. And he walked slowly, taking note of small details, the rusted hinges of a gate, the carved initials on a fence post, the patterns of sand left by small animals who now made their home where children once played. He thought of the women who had tended gardens in the summer heat, washing clothes in basins, hanging them on lines that now sagged and rotted, the scent of flowers that had long since disappeared, yet somehow lingered faintly in the mind's eye. He entered one of the miners' cabins, floorboards groaning beneath his weight, the fireplace cold, but he could see the soot marking years of use. A tin cup on a table, a chair turned slightly as if someone had just risen, and he imagined the miner returning after a long day, hands blackened by ore, a tired smile on his face, greeting family, sharing stories of the day's finds, the hopes of gold, and the quiet understanding of a life measured in small victories and daily survival. He lingered in that room, letting the imagination fill the silence, the lantern swinging in his hand, casting shadows that danced against walls. He moved on through alleyways where children might have raced, horses tied to posts, carts left waiting for deliveries, the faint echo of voices in the wind. He reached what had once been a communal well, stone edges worn smooth by decades of hands dipping buckets, water carried to homes, gossip shared over the cool stone, the rhythm of life continuing despite hardship. He imagined the women and men gathering, exchanging news, planning the week ahead, laughter mingling with work. He noted the remnants of a bakery flour still dusting the floorboards, ovens cold. But he could almost smell fresh bread and sugar, the simple joys of everyday life that left behind no record except in memory. As he moved back toward the center of town, the wind picked up, carrying with it faint strains of song, soft and elusive, as if Eleanor Whitfield's lullaby had become the town's own heartbeat. He paused at the old saloon once more, imagining a piano player's hands moving across keys. Miners and townsfolk gathered, stories flowing with the whiskey, the clinking of glasses punctuating conversation. And he realized that every detail, every object, every whisper of wind carried a story, a fragment of human presence. And though the town had fallen silent, these echoes were far from gone. He wrote notes in his journal as he walked, recording the textures, smells, and imagined voices, each entry a bridge between the past and present, the night settling around him, stars reflected in broken windows. The town, a skeleton of wood and stone, yet filled with memory. He finally reached the hill overlooking Silver Vein. The valley below stretched endlessly, the lantern swinging in his hand, casting a soft glow across rooftops and streets. And he realized the town was not dead, merely resting, breathing slowly in the folds of history, waiting for those willing to remember. He whispered softly to the wind, "I see you, I hear you, I will carry your story." And as he turned back to walk the streets once more, the night wrapped him in its quiet embrace, each step guided by memory and imagination, the soft sand underfoot, the distant echoes of life now past, and the gentle hum of the desert carrying him forward deeper into Silver Vein, deeper into its memories, ready to reveal what else lingered in the shadows and dust, waiting to be remembered. The night deepened around Silver Vein, stars scattered across the sky like pinpricks of memory, and the wind moved gently through the skeletal buildings, carrying with it whispers of lives once lived. The traveler moved toward the remains of the mine, its entrance gaping darkly. a hollow mouth leading to earth that had once held the sweat, the hope, and the labor of countless hands. The wooden supports creaked softly, reminding him of the weight of time pressing down upon the bones of the town. He imagined the miners descending each day, lanterns swaying boots striking stone, their breaths mixing with the damp smell of the earth. The sound of picks and shovels striking rock, the clatter of carts along wooden rails, a rhythm steady and relentless, echoing deep into the veins of the mountain. He stepped carefully across broken beams and loose stones, feeling as if the ghosts of those men watched, their presence not malevolent, but patient, waiting to be remembered. And he wondered about their prayers, the small moments of hope whispered into the darkness, the words they carried for their families, for their survival, for the fragile thread of life dangling in the mine's uncertain depths. He imagined a miner pausing at the edge of a shaft, leaning his lantern against the rock wall, wiping sweat from his brow, whispering a prayer for safety, for the return of another day, for the health of children he might never see again. He imagined families waiting outside, wives at the door, children pressed against windows, hearing the faint echo of voices returning from the darkness. And in that imagined sound, there was both relief and longing. He walked deeper into the mine, the air cooler, Dustier carrying the faint tang of iron and stone lantern in hand, shadows flickering along walls carved by pick and hammer. Stalactites of mineral glinting faintly as his light passed. He could almost hear laughter, the murmur of conversation, the small exchanges of men who shared not only work but life. A joke whispered to lift spirits. A song hummed softly to pass the hours. And he thought of the way they had built their community within this hollow of rock carving rooms, supporting shafts leaving messages in chalk and coal on the walls, each mark a testament to existence. He stopped at a narrow ledge where a collapsed tunnel had once been, imagining a miner's foot slipping slightly, hands gripping rock, a prayer escaping his lips in instinct, the silent plea for safety mingling with dust and echo. And as he continued, he noticed faint scratches along the walls, initials, simple drawings, tally marks of days, of work, of lives measured in effort and endurance. He traced them gently with his fingers, imagining the hands that had carved them, the faces that had peered into the darkness with lanterns flickering, the weight of exhaustion pressing down, but hope persisting nonetheless. The mine was not just stone and wood, it was the heartbeat of the town, pulsing faintly in memory. He came upon a small chamber where water had collected, reflecting lantern light, the surface rippling as though the past itself was moving beneath the reflection. He knelt and imagined a miner kneeling here before a long day, hands wet, whispering a prayer of thanks, of safety, of remembrance. And he felt the air thick with those unspoken words, almost tangible, lingering in the cold corners. He rose and continued along a narrow path, the ceiling low, lanterns swinging, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across rock. He could hear the faint creak of timber supports, the whisper of loose stones, and he imagined a miner singing softly to himself, a melody to steady his hands, to ward off fear, to remind himself he was still alive, still human, still holding on to a fragile hope. He paused at a corner where a shaft split into two, imagining men arguing quietly about which path would yield more ore, their voices blending with the sound of dripping water, the wind outside, the subtle groan of the earth itself. And he realized that this was a place of both struggle and endurance, of community built in darkness, of courage measured not by heroics, but by the quiet persistence of daily labor. He moved toward a larger cavern where the ore had been richest, imagining miners hauling buckets of rock, their muscles straining sweat, dripping onto the wooden rails, the echo of wheels rolling across stone. He imagined the foreman shouting directions, the men responding with nods and words, a language of shared understanding forged in danger and toil. And in the corner of the cavern, he pictured a young apprentice, barely 16, holding a lantern for the first time, eyes wide, heart pounding, learning the rhythm, learning patience, learning the way the mine demanded respect. He stepped carefully over a fallen beam, imagining how many had tripped, fallen, survived, or not. The air thick with the stories of those who had come before, and he thought of Eleanor, whose song had floated over the town long ago, perhaps echoing even into these tunnels, a reminder of beauty amidst hardship, of humanity amidst labor. He paused to rest, lantern casting a soft halo on the rough walls, and he wrote in his notebook, documenting every imagined sound, every shadow, every echo of life, tracing the pulse of the town through its veins of stone and wood. He moved again, deeper into the mine, listening, imagining, feeling the rhythm of lives measured in effort, in hope, in whispered prayers, and as the night deepened, the desert air seeping in through cracks, the stars above faintly visible through openings, he felt connected to the countless souls who had passed through this place, their courage, their small joys, their fears, their whispered songs, and he realized that memory and imagination were all that kept them alive now, that the town's heartbeat continued in those willing to remember, and he walked back toward the entrance, pausing to touch the walls, the lantern flickering shadows dancing the wind, carrying the faintest strain of song, as if Eleanor herself had not yet left, as if the town were breathing softly, quietly waiting to be remembered by anyone who cared enough to see and hear and feel the life that once flowed through it. And as he emerged into the cool night, the valley stretching endlessly under the stars, the town silent yet alive in memory, he whispered once more, "I see you, I hear you, I will carry your story." And the desert wrapped around him, the lantern swinging, guiding him back toward streets, toward memories, toward the quiet heartbeat of Silver Vein, deeper into the night, ready to reveal more stories that had been waiting patiently for someone to listen. The traveler walked back through the main street of Silver Vein, lanterns swaying gently, casting flickering shadows across the broken windows and sagging rooftops, the air cool and still, carrying with it faint scents of pine, dust, and the lingering sweetness of long-forgotten meals. The saloon stood before him, doors swinging silently in the breeze, and he stepped inside, the wooden floorboards groaning softly beneath his boots, the space dark and hollow. Yet in the darkness he could sense the memories embedded in every surface. The bar, though coated in decades of dust, still bore the indentations of countless hands. The counter polished smooth over years of service bottles, now empty and labels faded, their glass faintly catching the lantern light. The piano in the corner keys, chipped and yellowed, seemed almost alive, as if the notes it once played had settled into the wood and would rise again when the wind found them. He imagined the evenings long ago, miners and townsfolk gathered after long days of toil, laughter mingling with the clink of glasses, stories passed in whispers and shouts, the air thick with warmth and the aroma of whiskey, coffee, and pipe smoke. He walked along the counter, touching the edges, imagining the barkeep polishing it, sliding drinks across to patrons, nodding to familiar faces, and he thought of the conversations that had happened here, the secrets shared, small confessions, quiet dreams, the hope that gold would flow from the mine and change lives. He moved toward the back of the saloon where a staircase led to rooms once rented to travelers or lonely miners. Dust motes hung in the lantern's light, drifting like tiny spirits. He stepped carefully onto the stairs, each creak echoing faintly, imagining someone descending quickly in the night, a fistful of coins clutched tightly. Laughter spilling ahead of them, he paused at a landing and turned to look back. The piano seemed to hum faintly, a low note, almost like a memory trying to rise from the wood. He imagined the piano player, fingers nimble, head bent, playing for tips, for joy, for the comfort of a weary town. He continued upward, reaching a hallway lined with doors, the floorboards warped with age, and he imagined the occupants, a miner returning exhausted, a woman quietly folding laundry, a traveling salesman writing letters by candlelight, the creak of doors opening and closing, each sound a heartbeat of life that had once filled the building. He reached one of the rooms, its door hanging slightly ajar. He pushed gently, the room dark, small traces of life scattered. A chair tipped a tin cup on a bedside table, a book with pages yellowed and curling. He imagined the occupant sitting there years ago, writing a note home, counting coins, murmuring a prayer for safety or health. the wind rustling through cracks in the boards carrying the faintest echoes of speech. He moved on to the next room, the floorboards more broken, but still the shadows told a story. A small dresser with drawers slightly open, the smell of old fabric lingering faintly. He imagined a young couple, newly married, taking the tiny room as a home, whispering words into the night, holding on to each other as the desert stretched endless outside. The saloon was more than a building. It was a container of lives, hopes, and the soft, sometimes tragic, sometimes joyful rhythms of daily existence. He descended the stairs slowly, pausing at each step to let the weight of the stories sink in. Returning to the main floor, lantern held high, and he noticed for the first time the corners of the saloon where dust had piled into miniature dunes, shaped by the wind, resembling tiny hills and valleys. He imagined children playing there years ago, coins lost beneath the floorboards, laughter echoing faintly through time. He stepped to the bar again and ran a hand over its surface, imagining the barkeep's hands, the routine of pouring, wiping. Listening, nodding, understanding each person who entered as more than just a customer, and he pictured a miner sitting at the corner. Hat-tipped, low eyes tired, sharing a quiet confession or a small joke with a friend. The piano again seemed to vibrate faintly in response to the memory. He followed the echo of it to the doorway and looked out at the empty street, the lantern light illuminating splintered wood and broken glass. Imagining the town alive once more, the saloon as its center, a heart pumping life into streets and homes. He stepped outside, letting the cool night air wash over him, carrying whispers from the building. Faint laughter, the scrape of boots, the murmur of conversation, the wind moving like a storyteller through the gaps in walls and roof. He walked slowly past the well, past the general store, past homes with their doors yawning, imagining the lives inside, their routines, joys, small arguments, quiet reconciliations, the rhythm of a town that once breathed and sang. He paused at the edge of the main street, stars glittering above, lantern casting soft light, and he realized that the town's story was not in the buildings themselves, but in these echoes, in the memories carried by wind, dust, and imagination. He wrote in his notebook, "Silver Vein exists in moments, in laughter, in whispered confessions, in music that refuses to die, in the quiet endurance of life itself, and it waits for those willing to remember." And he walked on, back toward the cemetery, toward the mine, toward the streets that held more than walls and roofs, each step guided by memory and the quiet pulse of a town that had not been erased but only slept. And as he passed the windmill at the far edge, its blades groaning gently, he imagined children chasing each other around it, the miners returning home, women calling from doors, and the soft strains of a piano echoing faintly through the night. He understood now that the saloon, like every building, was a vessel, carrying the essence of life, and he whispered softly to the night, "I hear you, I carry you, I remember you." And the wind seemed to answer, brushing across rooftops, through broken windows, over silent streets, carrying whispers that had waited 100 years for someone willing to listen. And he moved on, deeper into the heart of Silver Vein, where more stories lay waiting, stories of quiet courage, simple joys, and lives measured not in grand gestures, but in persistence, hope, and the gentle rhythm of daily survival. The traveler wandered toward the old church, its spire leaning slightly against the sky, shadows stretching long across the cracked steps, the air carrying the faint scent of pine and old wood, and he paused at the threshold, imagining the doors opening long ago to welcome families, miners and children, the sound of footsteps echoing off the stone floors, the quiet murmur of prayers filling the space. He stepped inside, lantern held high, light dancing across broken pews, scattered hymnals, and a small altar that still held a candle holder, blackened by time but unbowed. He imagined the minister speaking softly to a congregation, words gentle and steady, guiding hearts through joy, sorrow, and the quiet endurance of everyday life. Children leaning on parents, eyes wide with curiosity, miners nodding silently, absorbing wisdom between the lines. The traveler moved slowly down the aisle, fingers brushing against the backs of pews worn smooth by generations. And he thought of weddings celebrated here, laughter spilling into the desert, promises whispered and carried away on the wind. He imagined a baptism water poured carefully over small heads, families gathered close, the smell of candle wax and incense lingering in the cool air. He walked to the front of the church, past the pulpit, imagining sermons delivered with calm authority, voices carrying hope and quiet comfort. The wind outside rustling through the cracks, making the wooden walls creak softly, a sound almost like a bell tolling faintly from a distance. And he realized that the church had always been a heartbeat, steady and enduring. In the life of Silver Vane, he moved toward the bell tower, stepping carefully over broken floorboards, the spiral stairs groaning beneath his weight, imagining the man who had climbed here every morning, pulling ropes to sound the bell, a signal for work, for prayer, for gathering, for pause, the sound traveling across streets and hills, calling people together, marking moments both joyful and somber. He reached the bell chamber, dust thick in the air, beams supporting the weight of years, and he traced the outline of the bell, imagining hands wiping it, ropes swinging, the clang resonating across the town, children stopping their play, miners resting for a moment, women adjusting laundry or preparing meals, the bell uniting the town in rhythm, a sound both simple and profound. He imagined weddings, funerals, announcements, the bell present for every chapter of life. And he felt its memory vibrating through the wooden floor through his feet. Up into his chest, he knelt beside the bell, placing his hands lightly on its cold metal, imagining the lives it had touched, the stories it had witnessed, the whispered prayers carried up and out, the joys and sorrows folded into each toll. He rose slowly and descended the stairs, pausing at each step to feel the pulse of the building. The weight of memory pressing gently but insistently, he walked back through the main hall, imagining congregations filing out, voices echoing, children giggling, miners nodding silently, the minister smiling, the scent of candle wax and pine hanging softly in the air. He exited into the night, the lantern casting long shadows over the steps and cobblestones, and he imagined the bell still ringing faintly in memory, across rooftops, through broken windows, mingling with wind and dust, carrying the rhythm of a town long silent. He moved toward the cemetery, walking past rows of leaning crosses and weathered stones, each name a note in the town's quiet melody, Eleanor Whitfield among them. Her presence felt faintly like a soft echo. He knelt beside her grave again, lantern held high, imagining her voice carried on the wind, a lullaby blending with the memory of the bell, children's laughter, and the murmur of prayers long past. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the town. Silver Vane speaks through every sound it made, every echo left behind, every heartbeat of wood and stone. And in this quiet, one can hear the lives it held, the love it nurtured, the courage it required. He rose and continued down the main street, imagining homes where families gathered by candlelight, meals shared, laughter exchanged, small arguments reconciled, the town breathing softly, alive in memory. The saloon doors creaked slightly in the breeze, piano keys faintly humming in the mind's ear, the general store shelves still holding the ghosts of past transactions. The mine yawning in the distance, echoes of picks and shovels mingling with the bell's memory. He paused at the well, imagining water-drawn hands, chilled faces, wet and smiling. Gossip, shared news, exchanged moments, fleeting yet enduring in memory. He moved toward a small house, imagining a woman sitting at a window sewing by candlelight, listening for the bell, counting time in its tolls, thinking of loved ones at work, children at play. He continued past a collapsed barn, imagining horses resting straw-scattered feed emptied the daily rhythm of life, silently preserved in memory. He walked slowly toward the edge of town, the wind carrying faint strains of song, soft and persistent, a reminder of humanity and endurance, the lantern swinging, casting a soft halo. And he understood that the bell, the church, the streets, the buildings, the very air carried a memory that no decay could erase, a story that required only a listener willing to pause and imagine. He wrote one final note in his journal before moving on. The echoes of Silver Vein linger in every corner, every shadow, every breath of wind. They wait for those who will hear and remember. And as he turned back to wander deeper into the town, toward Holmes streets and the mine, the night enveloped him, carrying the faint, persistent rhythm of a bell that had once called people together, a lullaby of memory and endurance. A sound that would guide him gently into more stories, more whispers, more life waiting quietly beneath dust and shadow. A heartbeat of a town that never truly slept. The traveler turned his steps toward the old general store, its sign faded, hanging crooked above the doorway, the lantern casting a soft, wavering light across the splintered wood. And he paused at the threshold, imagining the bell above the door jingling as customers entered. Miners weary from the shafts, women carrying baskets, children peeking curiously at jars of candy long since vanished. He pushed the door gently, the hinges groaning faintly in protest, stepping into a space thick with memory dust motes swirling like tiny spirits in the lantern's glow. Shelves once brimming with goods, now empty, a few tins still clinging to their labels, the smell of old pine sugar, and faint traces of dried herbs lingering in the air. He walked slowly, hands brushing along the edges of shelves, imagining the shopkeeper arranging merchandise, counting coins, nodding to familiar faces, the rhythm of transactions, small talk, laughter, and the soft murmur of news traveling through the town. He moved toward the counter, worn smooth by years of hands, fingers tracing carved initials, a small notch marking a tally, imagining children leaning to peek at jars, miners setting down coins, the occasional clink of a dropped penny, the shopkeeper's voice calm and welcoming. He stepped behind the counter, imagining himself in the role, reaching for a can of beans, a sack of flour, weighing sugar on the old brass scale, the lever moving smoothly, the tray tilting with the weight. He pictured the rhythm of daily life, families visiting to purchase staples, greetings exchanged, advice shared, news of births, illnesses, and the weather. He walked to the corner where a wooden staircase led to a small loft, imagining the shopkeeper ascending to retrieve supplies stored above. Bundles of fabric, jars of pickles, boxes of nails, candles and paper. He stepped lightly, floorboards groaning, imagining the sound of the shopkeeper humming softly, a lullaby or a tune picked up from the piano in the saloon. The loft cramped but orderly, each item carefully placed, a record of necessities for the town. He ran his fingers along the beams, imagining children hiding up here to play, whispers exchanged, giggles muffled beneath the rafters. He descended and moved to the back room, imagining it as a storeroom, crates stacked high, the scent of grain and dried meat lingering faintly. He pictured the shopkeeper carefully checking stock, lighting lanterns in the evening to finish inventory, the quiet routine, the small joys of organization, the comfort of knowing every item in its place. He moved toward the windows, imagining them once scrubbed clean, sunlight streaming in, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He could see the outlines of townsfolk passing by outside, children running errands, miners returning home, women carrying water, the rhythm of life continuing. Even as the years passed and the town quieted, he turned back to the counter, imagining a ledger lying open. The ink faded, but numbers and names tracing the lives of those who had depended on the store. Purchases small and large, notes about debts, promises kept, kindnesses extended. He imagined the shopkeeper sitting with a pencil, listening, recording, remembering each face, each story. And in this imagining, the store became not just a place of commerce, but a repository of life, memory, and community. He moved toward a side shelf, jars of candy still faintly visible in his mind, imagining children reaching for sweets, eyes wide with excitement, parents offering small indulgences, the simple joy of sugar, of attention, of shared moments. He stepped to a small stove in the corner, imagining it once used to heat the shop in winter, a kettle perched above the flames, tea or coffee brewing, the smell mingling with the faint scent of wood and pine. He paused, thinking of the quiet mornings when the shopkeeper brewed a cup, sipping slowly, listening for the first footsteps of the day. The creak of a wagon outside, a dog barking, the soft voice of a customer asking a question. The day unfolding in small, deliberate motions. He moved to the far corner, imagining a small secret. A ledger hidden beneath floorboards, a note tucked in a tin. Messages left for those who might return. Hints of stories untold. Whispers of kindness, warnings, or gratitude. He imagined discovering one. The thrill of connection across time. The sense of continuity. The knowledge that life persists even when silent. He walked slowly through the store again, tracing the paths of footsteps long gone, imagining laughter, arguments, the squeak of boots, the scratch of quills on paper, and the faint melody of a song carried from the saloon. He paused near the doorway, imagining the bell above jingling again, announcing the arrival of a child, a miner, a traveler, carrying news, supplies, or a smile. He stepped outside into the cool night air, the lantern casting a soft glow over the weathered sign, imagining the town alive again, people bustling, the general store as a hub, the pulse of community visible in every exchange, he wrote in his notebook, tracing the store's essence. Every shelf, every counter, every hidden nook holds a fragment of life, a whisper of silver veined soul waiting to be remembered, and he continued down the main street, past the saloon, past the church, toward the mine, each step guided by memory and imagination, the town breathing softly around him, the night carrying faint sounds of laughter, footsteps, and conversation. A quiet symphony of a life long past, yet enduring in the imagination. He paused at a small alley, imagining children playing, coins dropped, a dog barking, a shopkeeper calling softly, the rhythm of life preserved in fragments. The general store's secrets scattered through time, waiting for someone to notice, someone to listen, someone to remember. He walked on, deeper into the heart of Silver Vein, each step revealing another layer, another whisper, another fragment of a town that had once been alive. The lantern swinging, shadows dancing, wind carrying the faint scent of pine, and dust. And he realized that the store, like every building, every street, every stone, was a vessel for memory, for life, for the quiet endurance of human hope. And he whispered softly into the night, "I carry you, I remember you, I will not let your story fade." And the wind seemed to respond, brushing through the alleys, over rooftops, into broken windows, carrying with it the heartbeat of Silver Vein, the pulse of life that had never truly left, only resting, waiting for someone to walk its streets and feel the echoes of its past. The traveler walked along the narrow path toward the old schoolhouse, its frame leaning slightly against the horizon, paint peeling, windows clouded with age, the air carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and dry earth. He paused at the threshold, imagining the laughter and chatter that had once filled this modest building. Children's voices bouncing off wooden walls, chalk scraping against blackboards, the teacher's calm voice guiding small hands through the mysteries of reading, writing, and arithmetic. He stepped inside, the floorboards groaning underfoot, dust swirling like tiny dancers in the lantern's glow, benches arranged in neat rows, though now some toppled and broken. He ran a hand over the edge of a desk, imagining the smooth wood worn by generations of hands, initials carved into corners, hearts and names etched into permanence. He moved toward the blackboard at the front, chalk dust lingering faintly in the air, imagining lessons long forgotten. Letters and numbers carefully traced, the faint rhythm of a teacher's voice calling, "Now, children, listen and learn." He walked along the aisles, picturing children leaning forward, eyes wide with curiosity, the scratch of quills on paper, murmured questions, polite answers, a small hand raised for attention, and he imagined the teacher nodding, a gentle smile, the patience of someone guiding minds in a harsh, uncertain world. He stepped toward the back, where a small stove had once provided warmth, imagining winter mornings, children huddled around, their breaths misting in cold air, cheeks rosy, voices hushed in wonder. He knelt to examine a scattered pile of papers, imagining worksheets, Small stories, drawings of horses, mountains, the desert, tiny maps of Silver Vein and beyond. He traced faint lines with his fingers, imagining the hands that had drawn them, hearts full of hope, eyes full of dreams. He moved to the side, past broken chairs, imagining the daily rhythm, lessons, recess, meals eaten quickly, laughter, quiet moments of reflection, the soft murmur of voices reciting lessons, the gentle discipline of learning. He stepped to the window, imagining children gazing outside, watching the wind move dust across streets, the distant mine, the church spire, the general store, seeing their town unfold before them in miniature. He imagined a boy staring longingly, wishing to grow fast enough to work in the mine, a girl dreaming of letters, stories, and adventures beyond. And he thought of the teacher recording attendance, checking names, marking progress, the small joys of understanding, the gentle correction of mistakes, the laughter of children learning the thrill of discovery. He walked to the corner where an old cupboard still held faint traces of books, some pages curled, covers faded. He imagined lessons taught through tales of history, geography, and moral stories, children gathering eagerly, absorbing the wisdom of those who had come before. He stepped carefully toward the loft where older students might have stored belongings, imagining satchels, lunches, hats, the quiet companionship of learning together, and he pictured the occasional whispered secrets, the faint giggles, the simple joys of youth hidden beneath the structure's watchful frame. He descended and moved toward the front, imagining assemblies where the town gathered for announcements, children sitting quietly, parents nodding, the teacher's voice steady, guiding, the rhythm of community intertwined with education. He paused at the doorway, imagining the jingle of the doorbell, or the creak of hinges welcoming late arrivals, the faint shuffle of boots across wooden floors, a reminder of order, discipline, and care. He walked outside, the desert air cool against his skin, the lanterns swinging, casting elongated shadows across the dusty yard, imagining children running and playing, skipping rope, kicking stones, calling to friends, the pulse of life reflected in every movement. He moved toward the well near the schoolhouse, imagining water drawn for the stove, for washing hands, for small meals, the simple logistics of life intertwined with learning. He continued along the path past scattered rocks, imagining games, races, quiet conversations, the dreams of small minds forming quietly in the desert air. He paused at a tree where initials were carved, imagining two children tracing their names, hearts fluttering with the secrecy of small affection. He felt the rhythm of memory, a heartbeat that had persisted through dust, decay, and time. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the schoolhouse. Every desk, every blackboard, every corner holds a fragment of life, a whisper of curiosity, of learning, of the quiet endurance of childhood in Silver Vein. And he moved along the deserted path, imagining parents calling children home, the warm light of oil lamps glowing faintly in windows, meals being prepared, stories told by the fire, the simple intimacy of a family gathered. He continued past the town square, imagining festivals, fairs, music, laughter, the schoolhouse standing silently, a keeper of memory, a repository of growth, dreams, and tiny, precious victories. He walked past the church, saloon, general store, the mine beyond, feeling the pulse of the town in each step, in each shadow, in the faint echo of children's voices carried by the wind. He paused atop a small hill, lantern raised, the desert stretching endlessly, stars glittering, and he imagined the schoolhouse alive again, children running, learning, playing, the teacher smiling, the pulse of education connecting every building, every street, every soul that had passed through Silver Vein. He whispered softly, "I see you. I hear you. I remember you." And the wind seemed to respond, stirring dust across the streets, moving through broken windows, across rooftops, weaving the echoes of childhood lessons, laughter and hope into the night, carrying with it the quiet rhythm of life, waiting for someone willing to notice, someone willing to imagine, someone willing to remember the enduring heartbeat of Silver Vein, its schoolhouse standing patiently, quietly, a witness to generations, a guardian of the innocence, curiosity, and dreams that had once filled its walls. And as he walked on, deeper into the town, toward more stories waiting silently beneath dust, shadow, and memory, he felt the gentle pull of history, the tender weight of lives preserved not in stone or wood alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, in the quiet act of seeing and honoring the past. The traveler made his way down the uneven cobblestone path toward the blacksmith's forge, the faint scent of iron and coal lingering even in the cool night air, imagining the glow of the fire that once filled the space, the rhythmic clink of hammer on anvil echoing through the streets of Silver Vein. He paused at the threshold, envisioning the blacksmith at work, sleeves rolled, muscles flexing, each strike precise, each movement measured, the sparks flying like tiny stars, fading into smoke and air. The forge a heartbeat of energy in the town, the pulse of labor and creation. He stepped inside, the floorboards groaning softly beneath his feet, the walls lined with tools, tongs, hammers, chisels, files, each one telling the story of a hand that had wielded it, the smell of oil, sweat, and molten metal lingering faintly. He ran a hand along the edge of the anvil, imagining the countless objects formed here, horseshoes hammered into shape for weary animals, nails and hinges for homes, plows for fields, the town's lifeblood crafted under the blacksmith's patient, steady hands. He moved toward a small workbench in the corner, imagining intricate tools carefully placed, sketches of designs pinned above, the blacksmith pausing to consider a new piece, measuring, weighing, visualizing before ever striking metal. He walked past a pile of scrap iron, imagining it transformed into something useful, beautiful, or necessary. The act of creation, a quiet joy in an otherwise harsh life. He stepped to the bellows and imagined the rhythm of stoking the fire, wind feeding flames, heat rising, the intense glow illuminating soot-darkened walls. The blacksmith's face outlined in firelight, eyes focused, breathing steady, each hammer strike shaping the town's tools and objects. He paused near the doorway, imagining townsfolk entering, requesting repairs, ordering new items, exchanging stories, laughter, mingling with the ring of metal children peeking curiously at sparks. Learning from a distance. Absorbing the rhythm of work and life, he moved toward a small window, imagining the sun streaming in during daytime, dust motes dancing like tiny fireflies, the forge alive with movement, the smell of iron and oil blending with warm air. He imagined the blacksmith's apprentice learning, small hands mimicking precise movements, a mentor's guidance gentle yet firm, the rhythm of teaching, repetition, correction, and pride in mastery. He stepped toward a wooden chest near the corner, imagining it filled with scraps of metal, tools, small finished pieces awaiting delivery. He pictured the blacksmith carefully sorting, cataloging, preserving the tools of his trade, a quiet devotion, a love for the craft that transcended exhaustion and hardship. He walked to the back of the forge, imagining horseshoes arranged neatly, plows and farming tools ready for pickup. The town's work dependent on this small, warm, vibrant space. He knelt briefly to examine the floor, imagining footprints of children, apprentices, miners, and neighbors, each step a silent witness to daily life. He rose and moved to the anvil again, imagining the ringing of hammer on iron, a music of creation, a rhythm that had kept time for the town. He thought of weddings and births celebrated nearby, wagons loaded with goods, the blacksmith's hands busy yet always part of a larger, enduring flow. He stepped outside, lantern swinging, casting long shadows across the street, imagining the forge alive with warmth and light, neighbors gathering for news or advice, the pulse of the town beating steadily through metal and flame. He walked past the saloon, past the schoolhouse, the church, the general store, each building connected by the rhythm of life, and he paused atop a small hill overlooking the town, imagining the blacksmith watching the sunset from the forge doorway, wiping sweat from his brow, breathing in the desert air, the sense of accomplishment and belonging. He wrote in his notebook, "The blacksmith shaped more than metal. He shaped lives, supported dreams, and carved endurance into every object. every strike, every spark that rose into the air, and he continued down the path, past the quiet streets, imagining footsteps long gone, voices faint, the pulse of creation still resonating. He paused at a small fountain near the edge of town, imagining water drawn by children, washed over hands caked in dust, the rhythm of daily chores blending seamlessly with the craft and toil of the forge. He moved along, imagining the blacksmith's legacy carried forward in tools still used, structures still standing, habits and skills passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. He imagined the night settling over the town, stars glittering, the forge cold yet full of memory, each hammer strike and spark carried in the imagination, the town alive in thought and remembrance. He whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind responded, moving through broken windows, rustling debris, carrying the faint echo of hammering, the pulse of creation, the heartbeat of Silver Vein. And he understood that the forge, like every building in this quiet town, held more than tools and objects. It held life, memory, persistence, and hope, a rhythm that survived dust, decay, and time, waiting for someone willing to see, to imagine, and to remember. He walked on, deeper into the town, towards streets, homes, and the mine, each step guided by memory, the gentle pulse of history, and the quiet endurance of those who had lived, loved, and labored in this desert town that refused to be forgotten. And as he turned his lantern along rooftops, doorways, and alleys, he imagined the blacksmith smiling, a silent guardian of craft, life, and memory, his legacy ringing softly like the faint toll of a distant bell through every corner of Silver Vein, echoing across time, waiting to be heard, waiting to be remembered. The traveler turned his steps toward the mouth of the desert mine, the entrance yawning dark and silent against the setting sun, the air carrying a faint scent of earth, stone, and metal. He paused at the edge, imagining miners descending long ago, lanterns swinging, faces lined with soot and concentration, the rhythm of picks and shovels echoing softly against the walls. He stepped inside, dust and cool air mingling, the lantern casting a halo of light across jagged rocks, the sound of his boots soft against loose stones. He imagined the mine alive with movement, voices calling, hammers striking, carts rumbling along wooden tracks, the pulse of labor steady and unbroken. He moved carefully through the tunnel, running his fingers along rough walls, imagining hands that had dug tirelessly, forming passageways for ore, water, air, and life itself. He paused at a shaft where sunlight had once streamed faintly, imagining miners hauling ore in baskets, sweat running down brows, muscles straining. The quiet triumph of a heavy load lifted, the satisfaction of work done well. He stepped deeper, the lantern illuminating wooden supports, beams groaning under weight, and he imagined the foreman checking measurements, counting workers, speaking softly yet firmly, guiding men through a dangerous, necessary rhythm. He paused beside a cart track, imagining carts loaded with ore rolling slowly, wheels creaking, the sound mingling with hammer strikes, conversations, laughter, the occasional sigh. He moved toward a side tunnel where smaller veins had been explored, imagining children of miners watching curiously, learning early, understanding the value of labor, patience, and caution. He stepped carefully past a pile of discarded tools, imagining their owners choosing to leave or lose them, stories attached to each hammer, pick, and chisel. He walked toward a faint echo, imagining the voices of men singing softly, a song to pass the time, lift the spirit, connect with one another in the quiet, dark spaces. He paused at a ledge where ore had been extracted, imagining the glint of metal, silver and gold, copper and iron, each nugget a small triumph, a reason to hope, to return home, to provide, to endure. He knelt briefly to examine a patch of dust, imagining footprints long gone. The silent testimony of presence, of effort, of life persisted in stone. He rose and moved toward a deeper chamber, imagining miners crowded together, tools in hand, lanterns casting long dancing shadows, each face determined, each action, precise, the rhythm of work survival and cooperation guiding them. He walked past a faint shaft of light from above, imagining how sunlight once touched the walls, illuminating veins of ore, glimmering faintly, revealing beauty hidden beneath dust and darkness. He moved to the far end where water had seeped through cracks, imagining small pools collected, used for drinking, for cooling tools, for washing hands, faces and worn clothes. He stepped lightly, listening to the faint drip, imagining miners pausing to quench thirst, to rest briefly, to whisper a story or joke, the pulse of life persisting quietly. He paused near a corner, imagining a miner writing his name on the wall, a date, a note of gratitude, a sketch of a loved one, the human need to mark presence to leave a trace. He walked past remnants of old carts, abandoned tools, forgotten helmets, imagining the stories attached each object a fragment of life preserved in darkness. He moved toward the tunnel exit, imagining miners returning home at sunset lanterns, glowing softly, the sound of boots on desert soil, families greeting them, children running, meals prepared, laughter, and conversation resuming above ground. He paused briefly, imagining the interplay of mine and town, work and home, labor and rest, the rhythm of life maintained through sweat, patience and perseverance. He descended another side tunnel carefully, imagining hidden veins of ore, small discoveries that brought hope, moments of triumph quietly celebrated. He paused to imagine the first man to discover a pocket of metal, the ore, the careful extraction, the gentle reverence, the moment preserved in memory. He continued, imagining miners helping one another, sharing light, tools, encouragement, the soft murmur of voices and the occasional laugh. He paused to imagine a young apprentice, eyes wide with wonder, learning the craft, the danger, the patience, the quiet endurance required to succeed. He walked past a faint carving in the stone, imagining someone tracing a name, a date, a thought, a prayer, connecting human presence across time. He moved to the main shaft once more, imagining miners pausing to listen, to adjust ropes, to rest briefly, the rhythm of labor guiding them steadily. He paused at a faint echo, imagining the hum of conversation, the clink of metal, the whisper of air through tunnels, the mine alive in memory, in imagination, in story. He stepped carefully past a pile of coal and stone, imagining the sweat, toil, and determination required to move them, the physical rhythm mirrored in the emotional rhythm of hope and perseverance. He walked toward the exit, imagining the first sunlight touching the dust, illuminating small hidden veins, the glow reflecting faintly off tools, the pride of work, of discovery, of survival. He paused at the mouth of the mine, imagining miners emerging one by one, faces lined with soot, eyes, tired yet bright hands, calloused yet steady, the rhythm of labor finally yielding to the rhythm of home. He stepped outside fully, the desert air warm and soft, imagining families gathering, meals shared, stories exchanged, children laughing, the pulse of life flowing from mine to town, from labor to memory. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the mine. Every tunnel, every shaft, every forgotten tool holds the story of perseverance, of hope, of human endurance quietly thriving beneath the desert. And he walked along the dusted path back toward the town, the lantern casting long shadows, imagining the mine alive in memory, in imagination, in story, each echo, each glint of metal, each small triumph preserved, waiting for someone to notice, to listen, to remember. He paused briefly atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the mine stretching beneath the earth, carrying secrets, stories, and the pulse of countless lives. He whispered softly into the wind, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the breeze responded, moving across rooftops, through alleys, over streets, and into the darkened town, carrying with it the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its mine alive in memory, in imagination, in the quiet persistence of those who had labored, loved, and dreamed beneath its earth. And as he moved on, deeper into the heart of the town, towards streets, homes, and forgotten corners, he felt the gentle pull of history, the tender weight of lives preserved not in stone alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler approached the saloon, its doors slightly ajar, a faint glow spilling into the quiet street, the scent of old wood, dust, and faint traces of whiskey lingering in the air. He paused at the threshold, imagining the lively gatherings that had once filled this space, the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversations, laughter, and the soft melody of a piano playing somewhere in the corner. He stepped inside, the floorboards creaking softly beneath his boots, dust swirling in the lantern's light, imagining the saloon alive once more, patrons gathered at tables, miners recounting their day, families visiting for new strangers seeking companionship. He walked slowly toward the bar, hands brushing along the polished wood, imagining it gleaming with care bottles, neatly arranged glasses catching the firelight, the rhythm of service steady, unbroken, the bartender moving with practiced grace, welcoming all with a nod or a kind word. He moved past tables where cards had once been laid out, imagining the flick of a hand, the shuffle of a deck, the laughter of a winning hand, the quiet sigh of loss, the gentle ebb and flow of human fortune in a room filled with warmth and story. He paused near the fireplace, imagining cold evenings when patrons gathered around flames, hats tipped back, coats removed, children peering from corners, the scent of pine, smoke, and bread mingling. He moved toward the stage where a small piano had stood, imagining the music once flowing into every corner, soft or lively depending on the hour. The skill of fingers dancing across keys, drawing smiles, tapping feet, hearts lightened by melody. He walked along the walls where pictures once hung, photographs faded, portraits of miners, families, and travelers long gone. He traced their outlines, imagining their stories, their daily lives, their joys and sorrows preserved silently in the saloon's memory. He paused near a small table in the back, imagining whispered conversations, deals struck, plans made, secrets shared between friends or strangers, the pulse of life threading through the room quietly yet insistently. He moved toward the back door, imagining deliveries of supplies, barrels of ale, crates of food, the rhythm of replenishment, the steady maintenance of a town's social heart. He walked slowly toward the central table, imagining children seated during the day, learning from adults, the soft murmur of conversation blending with the occasional clink of glasses. He paused to imagine the piano again, soft tunes accompanying dances, celebrations, small festivals, laughter spilling out into the desert night. He stepped lightly across the room, imagining couples swaying to music, miners clapping in rhythm, the simple joy of shared entertainment, the saloon, a hub of life, of story, of quiet community. He moved toward the bar again, imagining the bartender polishing glasses, arranging bottles, offering advice, listening to troubles, sharing laughter. The pulse of life mirrored in small gestures. He paused at a window, imagining moonlight spilling across the floor, dust motes dancing, the faint echo of music carried into the night, the town alive in miniature within this one building. He stepped to a corner where a piano stool had once stood, imagining children trying the keys, teachers guiding hands, the gentle rhythm of learning and play. He moved toward the shelves behind the bar, imagining them lined with bottles, jars, and small trinkets, each one a memory, a story, a fragment of Silver Vein's life preserved quietly through years. He paused to imagine a miner sitting alone, quietly sipping, reflecting on the day, the challenges, the successes, and the moments of human connection. He walked toward the stage again, imagining music filling the space, laughter echoing, the rhythm of the town mirrored in every note, every step, every clink of glass. He stepped toward a side room where cards and board games had been stored, imagining children peeking, games being played, strategies learned, friendships formed quietly. He moved back to the bar, imagining the bartender watching over it all, patient, kind, guiding the flow of life as the rhythm of day and night passed seamlessly. He stepped outside briefly, the cool night air brushing against his face, lanterns swinging, casting long shadows across the street. imagining townsfolk lingering, talking quietly, the soft hum of music and conversation still alive in memory. He returned inside, imagining a quiet moment when the saloon stood empty, chairs upturned, piano silent, the fire low, the scent of wood and dust lingering, a place resting but ready for life to return. He walked to the doorway, imagining a miner leaving for home, children following parents, the pulse of the town settling for the night. He paused at the bar, imagining coins counted, ledgers updated, stories preserved in memory. He moved toward the corner where a small box had once held notes, messages, small tokens left by visitors. Imagining the quiet delight of discovery, the warmth of connection, he stepped slowly to the fireplace again, imagining its flames, the gentle crackle, the shadows dancing. Patrons gathered for warmth, comfort, and companionship. He paused to imagine music again, soft or lively, echoing through walls, mingling with laughter, whispers, and the rhythm of footsteps. He moved toward the piano, imagining fingers tracing melodies, the soft hum of song, the energy of life contained in this small, warm building. He stepped outside fully, the desert night calm, stars glittering above, lanterns swinging, casting shadows across broken windows, imagining the saloon alive in imagination, memory, and story. The pulse of life preserved quietly in every corner, every beam, every lingering scent, he wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the saloon. Every note, every glass, every whispered secret carries the heartbeat of Silver Vein, a rhythm of life that refuses to fade, waiting to be remembered. And he continued along the street, imagining the echoes of laughter, music, and conversation following him gently, intertwining with the night wind. The town alive in memory, imagination, and quiet reflection. He paused atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the saloon standing quietly, patiently, a guardian of life, memory, and human connection. And he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, alleys, and rooftops, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its saloon alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had lived, loved, and dreamed within its walls, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he walked on toward more stories hidden in dust, shadows, and memory, he felt the gentle pull of history, the tender weight of lives preserved not in wood or stone alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler moved slowly along the worn path toward the desert chapel, its small spire casting a long shadow across the dusty street, the air carrying faint scents of sage and old wood. He paused at the steps, imagining townsfolk entering long ago, their boots kicking up dust, hands clutching hymnals, faces lined with hope, worry, and devotion. He stepped inside, the creaking wooden doors closing softly behind him, dust motes dancing in shafts of fading sunlight, the faint scent of waxed floors and incense lingering. He walked down the central aisle, imagining pews lined with families, children sitting quietly, men and women seeking solace, guidance, or comfort. He paused at the altar, imagining candles flickering, the gentle murmur of prayers, the steady rhythm of a congregation rising and falling in quiet devotion. He moved toward the side chapels, imagining quiet reflection, whispered thoughts, the gentle scratch of pen on paper, prayers written and tucked into corners, offerings left with care, the pulse of faith quietly enduring through time. He stepped to a window, imagining sunlight streaming in, illuminating stained glass in soft reds, blues, and greens, the colors dancing across the floor, painting fleeting patterns, the beauty a gentle reminder of art, devotion, and patience. He walked slowly past the organ, imagining fingers tracing keys, soft music rising, accompanying voices in song, the gentle swell of melody carrying warmth and comfort through every corner. He paused to imagine the pastor, priest, or preacher guiding the congregation, words spoken softly yet firmly, wisdom imparted, hearts touched, the quiet care for each soul present. He stepped toward a small side door leading to a sacristy, imagining robes neatly hung, vessels polished, hymnals stacked, the silent rhythm of preparation for rituals, celebrations, and gatherings. He moved past old hymn books, imagining children learning songs, voices timid at first, then rising in harmony, the gentle joy of communal effort. He paused near a bench, imagining elderly townsfolk sitting quietly, watching the younger generation, smiles soft, memories vivid, the continuity of life and faith preserved in each expression. He stepped toward the altar again, imagining candle flames flickering, shadows dancing along the walls, the rhythm of prayer and music blending seamlessly with the quiet pulse of hearts and minds. He moved to the chapel's bell tower, imagining the ropes swaying in practiced hands, the clapper striking, echoing softly across the desert town, calling people together, marking the passage of time, the gentle flow of community life. He walked toward the back, imagining small gatherings, private confessions, quiet moments of contemplation, the rhythm of reflection sustaining the soul. He paused at a doorway leading to the cemetery beyond, imagining gravestones bathed in moonlight, names etched carefully, flowers placed, memories kept alive. The chapel standing silently as guardian of both living and departed. He stepped outside briefly, the desert air cool, the faint whisper of wind moving through cacti and sagebrush, imagining families walking home slowly, lanterns glowing, voices soft, the town settling gently into night. He returned inside, imagining quiet preparations for tomorrow, candles replaced, floors swept, hymnals ready, the steady rhythm of life preserved. He moved to a corner where a small box had once held offerings, imagining the gratitude, prayers, and devotion left there. He stepped toward a window again, imagining the sunlight streaming at dawn, illuminating the chapel once more, the colors vibrant, the space alive with history and care. He paused at the altar, imagining the gentle rise and fall of voices in song, the quiet murmur of prayer, the steady beat of hearts connected in reflection. He walked slowly along the pews, imagining children kneeling, learning, observing, the rhythm of guidance, encouragement, and patience unfolding gently. He moved to the organ once more, imagining soft music accompanying a lullaby sung to a newborn, a gentle hymn for healing, or a joyful tune for a celebration. He paused at the door leading to the bell tower again, imagining the rope pulled carefully, the echo of the bell carrying across the streets, rooftops, and desert air, a signal of time, continuity, and care. He walked toward the chapel's entrance, imagining townsfolk pausing briefly, tipping hats, whispering greetings. The rhythm of community life reflected in small gestures. He paused atop the steps, imagining the chapel bathed in the golden light of morning, dust motes dancing in the beams, the scent of wax, wood, and sage rising softly, a gentle reminder of continuity, devotion, and presence. He moved down the steps, imagining children skipping along, hands clutching hymnals or small notes, families walking slowly together, the rhythm of life and faith intertwined. He paused briefly, imagining the echoes of sermons, songs, and whispered prayers lingering in corners, in shadows, in the hearts of those who had entered. He continued down the path, the chapel standing silently behind him, a guardian of memory, faith, and the quiet pulse of life in silver vein. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the chapel. Every step, every song, every whispered prayer carries the heartbeat of silver vein, a rhythm of life, devotion, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. And he walked along the desert path, imagining the chapel alive in imagination, memory, and story. Each shadow, beam, and flicker of candlelight holding life and hope. He paused briefly atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the chapel silhouetted against the stars, the desert air calm. And he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, and alleys, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its chapel alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had lived, loved, and prayed within its walls. waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued deeper into the town, toward more buildings, streets, and quiet corners, he felt the gentle pull of history, the tender weight of lives preserved not in stone alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler turned down the narrow street leading to the old general store, its wooden sign swaying gently in the desert breeze, the scent of aged wood, dried herbs, and faint traces of leather reaching him as he approached. He paused at the threshold, imagining families entering long ago, children peering curiously at shelves filled with jars, boxes, and trinkets, the gentle clink of metal coins exchanged, the soft murmur of conversation blending with the creak of floorboards. He stepped inside, the light from the lantern casting long shadows across wooden shelves stacked with goods, the air thick with memory dust, and the subtle aroma of spices. He walked slowly past rows of canned goods, sacks of flour, coffee beans, sugar, and dried herbs, imagining hands carefully measuring, selecting, and exchanging items. Each gesture deliberate, precise, and threaded with quiet care. He paused near a corner where fabric bolts had been arranged, imagining townsfolk choosing cloth for dresses, shirts, aprons, blankets, the gentle rustle of fabric, the soft clink of scissors, the careful folding and stacking, the rhythm of daily life preserved in the texture and scent of cloth. He moved to the counter where the storekeeper had once stood, imagining a watchful eye, a friendly nod, a careful tally, the gentle patience of service. Coins counted, prices agreed upon, stories exchanged. He stepped past jars of nails, bolts, and small hardware, imagining craftsmen and miners selecting what they needed, the quiet joy of preparedness, the sense of anticipation as tools and materials were chosen with care. He paused to imagine children watching curiously, learning early the value of money, exchange, and attention to detail. He walked toward shelves filled with small toys, marbles, and trinkets, imagining the delight of young eyes, the quiet excitement of a small purchase, the soft laughter and smiles that brightened the dusty interior. He moved toward a corner where a wood-burning stove had once stood, imagining warmth on cold mornings, the smell of toasted bread or stew drifting through the store, patrons gathering, exchanging news, sharing quiet conversation, the rhythm of community life flowing steadily through these walls. He paused near a small bell mounted above the door, imagining it jingling softly as each customer entered or left, announcing presence, maintaining order, and welcoming all. He walked past shelves of glass bottles, jars of pickles, preserves, oils, and vinegar, imagining hands selecting each with care, checking labels, weighing, and exchanging coins. He paused at a section with medicinal herbs and powders, imagining townsfolk seeking remedies, comfort and guidance, the soft murmur of advice offered by the storekeeper, the quiet pulse of health and care maintained within this space. He moved toward the back where barrels of grains, flour, and sugar were stored, imagining hands scooping, measuring, and exchanging goods, the rhythm of preparation blending seamlessly with the rhythm of life. He paused at a window, imagining sunlight streaming in, illuminating dust motes, highlighting the colors of jars, fabric, and wood, the beauty of simplicity and care preserved in the ordinary. He stepped lightly along the aisles, imagining conversations between neighbors, the gentle exchange of news, the quiet laughter of children, the soft weight of shared life pressing gently into the air. He paused at a small desk near the back, imagining letters received, orders taken, accounts maintained, the careful hand of someone preserving memory, connection, and responsibility. He walked past shelves of coffee, sugar, tea, and small luxuries, imagining the small comforts of life treasured by each household, the gentle rhythm of exchange and provision quietly sustaining the town. He paused near a doorway leading to a storage room, imagining barrels of nails, ropes, tools, sacks of grain, and other supplies waiting to be counted, sorted, and distributed. The quiet heartbeat of labor preserved in memory. He moved toward the center of the store again, imagining families gathering briefly to chat, children peeking around corners, the warm smile of the storekeeper, welcoming all the pulse of life steady and comforting. He paused at a small display of candles, matches, and lanterns, imagining evenings spent in soft light. Meals shared stories told the gentle comfort of illumination in desert nights. He stepped toward a counter stacked with sacks of coffee and sugar, imagining careful weighing, gentle exchange. The soft rhythm of life preserved through mundane acts. He walked to a window once more, imagining the desert sun casting shadows across shelves, jars, and counters. The scent of wood, spices, and dried herbs mingling with warm air. He paused to imagine townsfolk, pausing briefly, tipping hats, exchanging a nod, sharing quiet stories. The continuity of community life reflected in small gestures. He moved toward the entrance, imagining the soft swing of the door, the bell jingling marking passage, presence, and care. He paused outside for a moment, the desert wind brushing his face, imagining children skipping along the street, parents chatting, laughter soft, voices gentle, the town alive in rhythm, memory, and imagination. He walked along the dusty street, imagining the general store standing quietly, ready to serve, to comfort, and to sustain life. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the store. Every shelf, every jar, every quiet exchange carries the heartbeat of Silver Vein, a rhythm of life, care, and community waiting to be remembered. And he continued down the street, lanterns swinging, casting long shadows across broken windows, rooftops, and alleys, imagining the general store alive in memory, imagination, and story, the gentle pulse of daily life echoing softly in every corner, every creaking floorboard, every lingering scent. He paused atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the general store bathed in early morning light, dust motes dancing, shadows stretching, the town quietly preparing for another day. And he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, and alleys, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its general store alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had lived, loved, shopped, and dreamed within its walls, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued down the path toward more streets, homes, and quiet corners, he felt the gentle pull of history, the tender weight of lives preserved not in jars or shelves alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler made his way down the quiet street toward the forgotten schoolhouse, its weathered wooden walls leaning gently with age, the wind stirring loose shingles and dust across the empty playground. He paused at the gate, imagining children laughing and running along the yard long ago, their voices mingling with the soft creak of swings and the rhythmic patter of feet on the dusty ground. He stepped inside, the wooden floors groaning softly beneath his weight, dust motes swirling in shafts of late afternoon sunlight filtering through cracked windows. He walked slowly down the narrow aisles between rows of old desks, imagining children seated carefully, hands clasped, heads bent over lessons, the faint scratch of chalk on blackboards filling the air with quiet energy. He paused at the teacher's desk, imagining the careful arrangement of books, papers, and ink bottles, the rhythm of preparation, the patient guidance offered to each student. He moved toward the blackboard itself, imagining lessons written and erased, numbers, letters, maps, diagrams, each stroke a small act of knowledge shared. He paused to consider the small footprints pressed into the wooden floor over decades, imagining children moving quietly, learning, playing, pausing to whisper or giggle softly. The pulse of education quietly alive in each worn board. He walked past shelves filled with books, imagining the gentle rustle of pages as children turned them, stories read aloud, voices rising in harmony, questions asked, curiosity nurtured. He paused at a corner where art projects had once been displayed. Drawings, paintings, and crafts capturing imagination, creativity, and the gentle pride of accomplishment. He moved toward a window ledge where sunlight fell softly, illuminating dust and remnants of paper. He imagined children pressing faces against the glass, watching seasons change outside, leaves falling, snow accumulating, the desert sun warming the earth, the gentle passage of time measured by growth, play, and learning. He stepped toward the coat hooks along the wall, imagining rows of jackets, hats, and scarves, the small chaos of children's belongings, the rhythm of order maintained by care and attention. He paused at the rear exit, imagining the rush of students leaving for home, the shuffle of feet, the soft murmur of farewells, parents waiting patiently, the pulse of life moving smoothly from school to home. He moved toward the corners where small reading nooks had once been arranged, imagining children sitting quietly, absorbed in stories, the soft murmur of voices reading aloud, sharing discoveries, the quiet joy of learning preserved in memory. He paused near a doorway leading to a tiny cloakroom, imagining the daily routines, the small gestures of care and responsibility taught gently by teachers. He stepped toward the main hall again, imagining assemblies, songs, recitations, the rise and fall of voices in unison, the shared rhythm of learning, celebration, and quiet reflection. He moved to the shelves along the walls, imagining jars of paint, pencils, rulers, chalk, and ink, the tools of knowledge and creativity quietly preserving the pulse of education. He paused at the fireplace where warmth had once gathered small groups, imagining children clustered in reading circles, stories shared voices, low eyes, wide laughter, soft the gentle hum of learning echoing in every corner. He walked to a window once more, imagining sunlight dancing across desks, floors and shelves illuminating dust, pencil marks, faint footprints and small pieces of paper, the beauty of ordinary moments preserved in quiet memory. He paused to imagine teachers guiding, encouraging, listening, sharing knowledge patiently, the rhythm of nurturing unfolding steadily. He stepped toward a small storage room at the back, imagining stacks of books, paper, supplies, and artifacts carefully preserved, the gentle pulse of preparation ready for each new day. He moved to the old piano in the corner, imagining fingers tracing keys, children learning songs, voices rising in harmony, the gentle joy of music mingling with lessons, the soft rhythm of shared achievement. He paused near a bulletin board where notes, pictures, and awards had once been pinned, imagining children admiring, learning, and celebrating small victories, the pulse of growth quietly alive in every corner. He walked toward the main entrance again, imagining the first bell ringing, children streaming in, the hum of activity rising and falling gently. He paused briefly outside, the desert wind brushing his face, imagining the schoolhouse alive in imagination, memory, and story, dust swirling gently, the sun beginning its descent, the shadows long and soft across playground and street. He moved back inside once more, imagining the gentle echo of footsteps, the faint laughter of children long gone, the soft murmur of lessons, the rhythm of curiosity and learning preserved in walls, floorboards, and dust. He paused at a window ledge, imagining the sun catching a small jar of colored pencils, a reminder of creativity, attention, and care. He walked slowly down the central aisle, imagining students moving quietly, hands raised, voices gentle, eyes bright, the steady rhythm of education continuing unseen. He paused near the teacher's desk again, imagining the soft scratch of pen on paper, the careful recording of lessons, grades, and guidance, the quiet pulse of care threading through the room. He stepped toward the playground briefly, imagining swings swaying, the faint scent of dust, grass, and wood, children running, laughing, small competitions unfolding gently, the rhythm of life outside flowing seamlessly with the rhythm inside. He returned to the entrance, imagining families greeting children, the soft exchange of stories, the gentle passage of knowledge, the continuity of care preserved quietly. He paused atop the steps, imagining the schoolhouse silhouetted against the desert sky, lantern in hand, dust motes dancing, the pulse of memory steady, he wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the schoolhouse. Every desk, every lesson, Every whispered question carries the heartbeat of silver vein, a rhythm of curiosity, growth, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. And he continued down the dusty street, imagining the schoolhouse alive in memory, imagination, and story. Each shadow, beam, and particle of dust holding life, hope, and the gentle continuity of learning. He paused briefly atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the forgotten schoolhouse bathed in early evening light, and he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, alleys, and rooftops, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its schoolhouse alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had learned, played, and dreamed within its walls, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued along the town streets, toward more corners, rooftops, and silent histories, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in wood or stone alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler turned down the narrow path leading toward the blacksmith's forge, the scent of iron, coal, and smoke reaching him before the building came into view. He paused at the wooden doorway, imagining the steady rhythm of hammer striking metal, sparks dancing in the dim glow of the fire, the heat rising, mingling with the dry desert air. He stepped inside, the floorboards heavy with dust and soot, the walls lined with tools, tongs, hammers, anvils, and half-finished works, each telling the story of hands skilled in patience, strength, and creation. He walked slowly toward the central hearth, imagining the bellows inflating with practiced rhythm, the fire responding with orange and gold tongues licking iron, molten and pliable, shaped into horseshoes, nails, tools, and the quiet necessities of daily life. He paused to imagine the blacksmith at work, muscles moving steadily, eyes focused, hands steady, sweat glistening under lantern light, the rhythm of labor as much a part of the town as any street or building. He moved past racks of tools, imagining miners, farmers, and townsfolk selecting implements, seeking repair or new creation. The quiet satisfaction of craft shared and preserved. He paused near a small table where sketches of designs lay, imagining thoughtful planning, careful measurement, and the gentle pride of artistry. He stepped toward the back where coal and metal were stored, imagining the careful stacking, selection, and preparation. The rhythm of work preserved through diligence and attention. He moved to an old vise mounted to a workbench, imagining metal held firmly as hammer struck precisely, sparks flying, the soft hiss of molten iron meeting cool water, the quiet harmony of craft and necessity. He paused at a window, imagining sunlight streaming through, illuminating dust, soot, and tools, the warmth of day mingling with the heat of the forge. He walked along the walls lined with horseshoes, nails, and small metal trinkets, imagining the gentle echo of hammering over decades, shaping not only tools but life itself. He paused near a shelf where small decorative items had once been displayed, imagining delicate care artistry and attention to detail, blending seamlessly with practical work. He moved toward the anvil again, imagining each strike forming purpose and structure, the quiet rhythm of labor echoing through time. He paused to imagine apprentices learning, observing, and practicing, the patient guidance of the master shaping hands and minds alike, the gentle hum of industry quietly sustaining the town. He stepped toward the doorway leading outside briefly, imagining the desert wind mixing with the smell of smoke and metal, the clinking of tools carried faintly, the sun catching the edges of iron, casting long shadows across the yard. He returned inside, imagining small repairs being made, the careful exchange of items, the quiet communication of trust and skill between blacksmith and townsfolk. He paused at a workbench cluttered with unfinished projects, imagining hands moving with practiced patience, shaping, filing, and finishing each piece with care. The rhythm of creation mirrored in the gentle pulse of community life. He walked slowly along the wall where tongs, hammers, and files hung neatly, imagining each piece selected thoughtfully, maintained carefully, ready to serve, the pulse of life preserved in steel, wood, and sweat. He paused near a small furnace where molten metal glowed, imagining careful pouring, shaping and cooling, the delicate balance between fire and form, strength and precision. He moved toward the anvil once more, imagining the soft echo of hammer against iron resonating through the space, the heartbeat of work and dedication carried in each strike. He paused to imagine the blacksmith pausing briefly, wiping sweat from brow, observing the work completed, a quiet satisfaction threading through the room. He stepped to a corner where small tools had been repaired, imagining careful handling, the gentle patience needed to restore and preserve. He walked toward the central hearth again, imagining the steady inflating of bellows, the soft hiss of water cooling iron, the sparks dancing gently in the warm glow of lanterns. He paused to imagine the rhythm of work over time, generations of hands shaping, crafting, repairing, sustaining, the quiet continuity of life preserved in iron and flame. He stepped outside briefly, imagining the sun descending, casting long shadows across the forge yard, the scent of smoke mingling with desert air, the soft creak of gates and doors echoing faintly. He returned inside, imagining tools being set carefully for the night, metal cooled, fire dimmed, lanterns casting gentle pools of light, the quiet order of preparation preserved. He paused near a shelf where small personal items had been stored, imagining small tokens of gratitude, gifts or reminders of shared work and friendship. He walked slowly toward the doorway, imagining townsfolk pausing briefly, tipping hats, whispering greetings, sharing news. The rhythm of life flowing gently, he stepped outside fully, the desert wind brushing his face, lantern in hand. Imagining the forge standing quietly, a guardian of skilled labor and quiet perseverance. He paused atop a small rise, imagining sparks from decades of hammering frozen in memory, the pulse of creation echoing through streets, rooftops and alleys. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the forge. Every strike, every spark, every hand at work carries the heartbeat of silver vein, a rhythm of skill, patience, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. And he continued down the dusty street, imagining the blacksmith's forge alive in memory, imagination, and story, each spark, tool, and shadow holding life, care, and the gentle persistence of craft. He paused briefly atop a hill, lantern held high, imagining the forge bathed in the last glow of sunset, and he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, and alleys, carrying the heartbeat of silver vein, its blacksmith's forge alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had worked, shaped, and dreamed within its walls, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued along the town, toward more streets, corners, and histories hidden in dust, shadows, and memory, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in iron or wood alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler approached the narrow entrance of the miner's tunnel, the wooden beams weathered and darkened by years of dust and shadow, the faint scent of earth, iron, and lingering smoke drifting from the depths. He paused at the threshold, imagining miners descending long ago, lanterns swinging gently, boots crunching against gravel and timber, pickaxes in hand, muscles moving in steady rhythm. The soft echo of strikes carried through stone corridors. He stepped inside, the air cooler, heavier, holding the weight of memory, dust motes floating in lantern light, illuminating rough walls, jagged edges, and tracks pressed into the ground. He walked slowly down the main passage, imagining voices murmuring instructions, soft laughter, the careful coordination of hands and feet, the rhythm of labor sustained through focus, skill, and patience. He paused near a side alcove, imagining miners taking brief rest, sharing small morsels of bread, dried meat, or water, the quiet camaraderie preserving morale. He moved past old tools left leaning against walls, pickaxes, shovels, hammers, and buckets, imagining the careful selection, care, and repair of each instrument, the rhythm of preparation and work maintained in subtle gestures. He paused near a lantern hanging from a hook, imagining the soft glow illuminating faces tired but resolute. Eyes focused, sweat glistening. The quiet dignity of labor preserved through time. He stepped toward a deeper passage, imagining the faint sound of water dripping, the echo of metal striking stone, the rhythmic movement of hands shaping tunnels, reinforcing walls, and transporting ore. He paused to consider the history embedded in the walls, the marks of effort, skill, and patience left by generations, each groove a whisper, each strike a heartbeat. He moved past narrow galleries, imagining miners crouched, stooped, or kneeling, hands steady, heads bent in concentration. The rhythm of creation, extraction, and preservation flowing gently. He paused near a small storage alcove where lantern oil, spare tools, and ropes had been kept, imagining careful organization, attention, and the quiet reassurance of preparedness. He stepped toward a shaft leading deeper into the earth, imagining the cool air, faint vibrations, the distant murmur of other tunnels, the pulse of subterranean life continuing unseen. He moved along the main corridor again, imagining men speaking softly, exchanging knowledge of veins, rocks, and minerals, the careful transfer of experience threading through the air. He paused at a corner where tracks led to a small cart, imagining the gentle rolling of wheels, the rhythmic clatter echoing in passageways, the careful transport of ore, the quiet diligence of a shared task. He walked past old timbers supporting the walls, imagining their placement, wear, and steady endurance under the weight of earth. The rhythm of safety and survival preserved in careful craftsmanship. He paused near a nook where miners had once rested tools or left personal items, imagining small tokens of comfort, letters, trinkets, reminders of family and home, the tender persistence of connection threading through labor. He moved toward a fork in the tunnel, imagining careful coordination, planning, and communication, needed to avoid accidents. The rhythm of teamwork, trust, and attention unfolding steadily. He paused to consider the flickering light of lanterns, casting shadows across rough stone, illuminating rough-hewn walls, the gentle play of light and dark preserving both memory and mystery. He stepped toward a smaller shaft where miners had dug for veins of silver and copper, imagining hands striking rock, dust rising in soft clouds, sweat glistening on brows. The quiet rhythm of extraction carried forward through effort, patience, and hope. He paused near a junction where water had once collected, imagining the careful drainage, bailing and maintenance needed to keep tunnels safe. The rhythm of problem-solving threading quietly through the work. He walked past stacked ore, waiting to be carried, imagining the gentle strain of lifting, pushing and rolling, the quiet endurance of physical labor, woven into the pulse of the town. He paused at a corner where names and dates had been scratched into walls, imagining miners marking birthdays, milestones, small personal histories, the tender preservation of life in a subterranean world. He stepped toward a narrow side gallery where soft echoes carried, imagining quiet conversation, laughter muted, advice shared, the rhythm of teaching, learning, and supporting threading gently through the dark passages. He moved deeper into the mine, imagining the subtle shifts of rock, the creak of timbers, the faint whisper of wind, each sound a reminder of vigilance, care, and presence. He paused at a small alcove where mineral samples had been stored, imagining careful examination, classification, and the gentle pulse of knowledge threading through work. He stepped along tracks toward a faint light marking the exit, imagining the transition from subterranean shadows to the soft glow of desert sun, the rhythm of life continuing, shaped by effort, skill, and quiet patience. He paused outside briefly, the cool desert breeze brushing his face, the scent of earth dust and metal lingering. He imagined miners emerging slowly, stretching, breathing deeply, the gentle relief and satisfaction of a day's work carried forward. He returned to the tunnel entrance, lantern in hand, imagining the structure standing quietly, a guardian of toil, endurance, and quiet perseverance. He paused atop a small rise, imagining the tunnel's interior frozen in memory, the pulse of labor echoing softly through streets, rooftops, and alleys. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the miner's tunnel. Every strike, every careful movement, every whispered instruction carries the heartbeat of Silver Vein, a rhythm of effort, patience, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. And he continued down the desert path, imagining the miner's tunnel alive in memory, imagination, and story. Each spark, echo, and shadow holding life, hope, and the gentle continuity of work. He paused briefly atop a hill, lantern held high, imagining the tunnel bathed in the last glow of sunlight. And he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, and alleys, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its miner's tunnel alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had labored, hoped, and dreamed beneath its earth, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued along the town, toward more streets, corners, and hidden histories, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in tunnels or tools alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler approached the creaking doors of the abandoned saloon, the faded sign swaying gently above, its painted letters chipped and softened by years of sun, wind, and dust. He paused at the threshold, imagining the lively scenes of the past, patrons laughing softly, the gentle clink of glasses, the low murmur of conversation blending with the subtle strum of a piano. He stepped inside, the wooden floors groaning beneath his weight, dust motes dancing in shafts of late afternoon light filtering through cracked windows. He walked slowly across the room, imagining tables once arranged carefully, glasses polished and placed with attention, the rhythm of service and hospitality carried forward in quiet memory. He paused near the long bar, imagining bottles lined up in neat rows, labels bright, filled with spirits and tonics, the subtle scent of aged wood, hops, and syrup mingling in the air. He stepped toward a corner where a small stage had once stood, imagining a piano with slightly worn keys, a player lifting hands in soft motion, melodies drifting through the room, the gentle pulse of music threading through stories and laughter. He moved past booths where families and friends had gathered, imagining quiet conversations, the soft exchange of news, laughter shared, and moments of solace. He paused near a fireplace, imagining warm light, gentle heat spreading across the wooden floor, patrons leaning closer to exchange words, stories, and small confidences. He walked toward a window, imagining sunlight catching dust and glass, illuminating bottles, bar tools, and the soft sheen of polished wood. He paused at a table where cards had once been laid out, imagining the quiet concentration of players, the shuffling of decks, the soft murmur of strategy and luck. He stepped toward shelves lined with books, magazines, and small curiosities, imagining guests browsing, selecting stories to read aloud, the gentle pulse of curiosity threading through the air. He paused at a corner near a small lamp, imagining couples seated, hands intertwined, whispers shared, laughter soft and tender, the quiet warmth of human connection preserved in memory. He moved toward the back where storage once held barrels of spirits, sacks of sugar, and tools of service, imagining the careful rotation, selection, and preparation, the rhythm of organization and attention quietly sustaining life in the room. He paused near a doorway leading to a small vestibule, imagining people pausing briefly, tipping hats, exchanging soft greetings, the gentle pulse of etiquette and connection threading through the town. He walked slowly past tables, chairs, and the bar once more, imagining footsteps, laughter, piano notes, the soft murmur of conversation, each echo preserved in dust, light, and wood. He paused at a small mirror above the bar, imagining the reflection of patrons long gone, the gentle curve of smiles, the sparkle of eyes, the quiet presence of memory captured in glass. He moved toward the piano again, imagining fingers tracing keys, melodies floating, the room responding with soft resonance, the rhythm of harmony threading through shadows and dust. He paused near the door leading to a tiny balcony, imagining cool desert air. Voices carried gently, the faint murmur of streets and wind mingling with music and conversation. He walked past old chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, imagining soft light illuminating tables, floors, and patrons. The warmth of illumination casting gentle shadows, the pulse of life preserved in glow and reflection. He paused near a corner where small trinkets and mementos had been displayed, imagining careful attention, souvenirs of celebrations, milestones, and small joys. He moved toward a set of chairs arranged near the piano, imagining children listening, adults nodding to music, stories shared in quiet tones, the rhythm of community and culture threading steadily through the space. He paused at the main entrance once more, imagining doors swinging gently, the faint jingle of a bell announcing presence, the soft recognition of each visitor. He stepped toward a window briefly, imagining sunlight catching dust motes, illuminating bottles, tables and chairs, the soft sheen of wood glowing. He walked along the main floor again, imagining stories exchanged, laughter rising and falling, music echoing, the gentle pulse of hospitality alive in memory. He paused near the bar, imagining glasses raised, soft murmurs of toast, quiet gratitude shared, the rhythm of kindness threading through the room. He moved to the back once more, imagining barrels and supplies carefully arranged, the gentle hum of preparation for evenings past, the rhythm of service preserved in careful memory. He paused at a corner where a small piano stool had once been, imagining the soft pressure of hands, the subtle motion of feet, the gentle rise and fall of music. He stepped outside briefly, imagining the wind brushing his face, the faint scent of wood and aged spirits lingering, the soft murmur of distant streets mingling with memory. He returned inside, imagining each table, chair, and object holding fragments of stories, melodies, laughter, and quiet reflection. He paused near a doorway, imagining patrons pausing to exchange a glance, a nod, a soft word, the rhythm of connection carried forward in gentle memory. He walked slowly toward the center of the room, imagining the dance of light and shadow, the play of dust motes in sunbeams, the gentle pulse of life once vibrant, now softly preserved. He paused at the bar again, imagining the careful polish of wood, the arrangement of bottles, the subtle reflection of lantern light across surfaces. He moved toward a table near the window, imagining soft conversations, shared stories, the gentle pulse of human presence threading through the room. He paused briefly at the doorway to the alley, imagining the faint sound of footsteps, the rustle of skirts, hats tipped in greeting, the rhythm of movement and interaction threading quietly through memory. He stepped back to the center, imagining the room alive in imagination, the soft glow of lantern light, shadows stretching across walls, tables, and floors, the rhythm of life preserved in quiet observation. He paused near the piano once more, imagining soft melodies, voices joining in gentle harmony, the pulse of culture and community threading steadily. He walked toward the main entrance for the final time, imagining the swing of doors, the faint jingle of a bell, the wind brushing dust motes across the floor. He paused atop the steps outside, the desert wind brushing his face, imagining the saloon bathed in evening light, shadows stretching, lanterns glowing softly. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the saloon. Every table, every note, every whispered conversation carries the heartbeat of Silver Vein, a rhythm of laughter, music, and quiet connection waiting to be remembered. And he continued along the street, imagining the abandoned saloon alive in memory, imagination, and story, each shadow, echo, and beam holding life, warmth, and the gentle persistence of shared moments. He paused briefly atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the saloon bathed in the last glow of sunset, and he whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, and alleys, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its abandoned saloon alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had laughed, shared, and dreamed within its walls, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued along the town, toward more streets, corners, and silent histories, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in wood or glass alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler walked slowly along the dusty path leading to the desert cemetery, the sun low in the sky, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. He paused at the wrought iron gate, its paint faded and peeling, imagining the footsteps of mourners long ago, their soft voices mingling with the wind, the rustle of dry grass, and the gentle creak of wooden crosses swaying faintly. He stepped inside, the sand soft beneath his boots, scattered stones and faded markers lining narrow paths. He walked slowly among the graves, imagining families gathering quietly, whispering names, laying flowers or small tokens, the pulse of memory threading gently through the air. He paused near a cluster of markers, some weathered to the point of illegibility, imagining the lives they represented. Children, parents, elders, each story a soft echo of days long past. He moved past a small stone bench, imagining visitors sitting quietly, hands folded, eyes downcast or lifted toward the sky. The gentle rhythm of reflection and remembrance carried steadily through time. He paused at a grave marked with a simple wooden cross, imagining soft prayers, whispered words of love, grief tempered by acceptance, the quiet dignity of human emotion preserved in memory. He walked toward a section where the sand had shifted over time. Exposing fragments of stone, he imagined caretakers gently restoring markers, smoothing sand, preserving the delicate traces of history. He paused at a low stone wall marking the edge of the cemetery, imagining children playing quietly nearby, the soft murmur of life interwoven with reverence. He stepped toward a narrow path leading deeper into the plot, imagining the careful arrangements of graves, the placement of stones, flowers, and small personal mementos, the rhythm of care threading gently through decades. He paused at a weathered tombstone carved with delicate letters, imagining the hand that had shaped it, the steady attention, the quiet hope that memory would endure. He walked past markers of different sizes and materials, imagining families gathering to honor loved ones, to whisper stories, to share memories with the wind. He paused near a small mausoleum, its iron door slightly ajar, imagining the quiet interior, shadows falling softly across stone, the faint echo of footsteps long gone, the rhythm of silence and memory preserved. He moved toward a lone oak tree standing sentinel near the center, its branches swaying gently, imagining the shade it had offered to visitors, the quiet place to rest, to reflect, to breathe. He paused beneath the boughs, imagining the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft whisper of wind, the careful tending of graves by hands guided by love and memory. He walked slowly down another path, imagining markers of children, small stones decorated with flowers, toys, and simple carvings, the pulse of tender care threading softly through grief and remembrance. He paused near a group of graves marked by family names, imagining generations remembered together, stories passed quietly from parent to child, the rhythm of continuity threading through time. He stepped toward a small hill overlooking the cemetery, imagining the soft glow of sunset illuminating markers, casting long shadows, the gentle play of light across stone, sand, and grass. He paused briefly at a weathered plaque commemorating those who had passed, suddenly imagining tears shed quietly, voices raised in prayer or song, the subtle hum of human connection threading through sorrow and memory. He walked along the edge of the cemetery, imagining caretakers gathering tools, tidying graves, the rhythm of preservation maintained steadily, the pulse of respect threading through quiet gestures. He paused at a stone marker partially covered by sand, imagining hands brushing dust aside, uncovering names, the gentle act of remembering, the subtle power of presence preserved in touch and attention. He moved toward a small section where wildflowers had grown naturally, imagining visitors picking blooms, placing them delicately on graves, the soft scent mingling with earth, stone, and wind. He paused at a modest tombstone carved with intricate details, imagining the sculptor's patient hand, the quiet intention to honor and preserve memory. He walked slowly along the narrow lanes between graves, imagining each step connecting past to present, life to memory, the quiet rhythm of reflection threading steadily through time. He paused near a low mound where a family had gathered, imagining whispered stories, soft laughter, the gentle pulse of human connection echoing softly. He stepped toward the far corner where the desert stretched beyond the cemetery, imagining the faint echo of footsteps fading into distance, the gentle wind carrying memories across open sand. He paused to consider the small details often overlooked, the tilt of a stone, the scattering of petals, the faint imprint of a boot on sand, the rhythm of attention preserving life and story quietly. He walked toward a small lantern left by a recent visitor, imagining its soft glow illuminating markers, casting gentle shadows, the pulse of memory carried forward in simple gestures. He paused at a cluster of graves belonging to miners, imagining tools and tokens left carefully, whispers of gratitude, quiet acknowledgement of lives devoted to labor, endurance, and hope. He moved along another path, imagining the gentle hum of desert wind, the quiet resonance of footsteps, the soft presence of those remembered threading steadily through space. He paused beneath a weathered tree, imagining the sun filtering through leaves, the faint rustle echoing stories, voices, laughter, tears, the rhythm of life, loss, and memory gently preserved. He walked toward the edge of the cemetery once more, imagining the soft glow of sunset illuminating stone, sand, and wildflowers, each shadow, each grain of sand carrying history, emotion, and quiet reverence. He paused briefly, lantern held high, imagining the cemetery alive in imagination and memory. The soft hum of lives remembered threading steadily through time. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of the desert cemetery. Every stone, every flower, every whispered prayer carries the heartbeat of Silver Vein, a rhythm of memory, reflection, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. And he continued along the edge of the town, imagining the desert cemetery alive in memory, imagination, and story. Each shadow, each breeze, and each beam of light holding life, hope, and the gentle persistence of remembrance. He paused briefly atop a small rise, lantern held high, imagining the cemetery bathed in the last glow of sunset. And he whispered softly, "I see you. I hear you. I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, alleys, and graves, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its desert cemetery alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had lived, mourned, and dreamed, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as he continued along the town, toward more corners, rooftops, and silent histories, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in stone alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. The traveler climbed slowly to the ridge overlooking Silver Vein. The town stretched below him, bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon sun, dust rising gently from empty streets, the faint creak of shutters in the wind. He paused to take it all in, imagining families, miners, merchants, and travelers moving quietly along streets long silent, the rhythm of life preserved in memory and imagination. He stepped along the ridge, feeling the soft crunch of gravel beneath boots, imagining the footsteps of those who had walked here decades ago, the gentle murmur of voices, the subtle echo of life threading steadily through time. He paused near an old wagon wheel half buried in sand, imagining the creak of wooden spokes, the soft grind of axles over rock, the steady movement of goods and people, the pulse of effort preserved quietly in memory. He moved toward the edge of the ridge where tumbleweeds rolled slowly, carried by the desert wind, imagining small children chasing them, laughter soft and fleeting, the rhythm of play and innocence threading gently through the deserted town. He paused at a stone marker set into the earth, imagining the hand that placed it, the quiet intention to honor a person, an event, a fleeting moment. the rhythm of remembrance threading steadily through generations. He stepped along a narrow path toward the remnants of the town square, imagining benches, fountains, and the soft chatter of townsfolk gathering for news, laughter, or reflection, the pulse of community alive in memory. He paused near the remains of a wooden sign marking the general store, imagining shelves lined with goods, the careful attention of shopkeepers arranging items, the soft murmur of trade threading gently through the room. He moved past the ruins of houses, imagining families preparing meals, sharing stories and resting in quiet comfort, the rhythm of domestic life preserved in dust, shadow, and imagination. He paused near a well at the center of town, imagining the gentle dip of buckets, the faint splash of water, voices calling, laughter mingling with the desert breeze, the pulse of daily necessity threading steadily through time. He walked slowly toward the blacksmith's forge, imagining the soft echo of hammer on iron, the warm glow of fire, the gentle rhythm of hands shaping metal, the heartbeat of craft carried quietly through memory. He paused at the abandoned saloon, imagining the soft piano notes, glasses raised, whispers of laughter, the gentle pulse of human connection threading steadily through shadows and dust. He moved toward the miner's tunnel, imagining pickaxes striking rock water, dripping softly, the patient rhythm of labor threading quietly through stone and time. He paused near the desert cemetery, imagining flowers placed delicately, prayers whispered softly, the quiet pulse of love, grief, and remembrance threading gently through air, sand, and stone. He stepped onto a small rise overlooking the entire town, imagining sunlight catching rooftops, wooden beams and rusted iron, the soft glow illuminating streets, alleys, and open squares. He paused to reflect on the lives that had moved through this space, the quiet dignity of effort, love, and persistence carried gently in memory. He moved slowly along the ridge, imagining the soft shadow of mountains stretching across the desert, the gentle sway of grass and brush, the faint call of birds returning home, the rhythm of nature threading gently through time. He paused to imagine the last families leaving, wagons rolling, doors closing, the soft echo of footsteps fading into distance, the pulse of life preserved in story and imagination. He walked past remnants of fences, imagining children playing, neighbors greeting, the gentle hum of community threading steadily through years. He paused near a small chapel at the edge of town, imagining soft hymns, flickering candles, quiet reflection, the rhythm of faith and ritual threading gently through generations. He stepped toward the edge of the ridge again, imagining the sun dipping lower, shadows stretching, the soft wind carrying dust, leaves, and faint echoes of life. He paused briefly, lantern in hand, imagining the town alive in imagination, each structure, each artifact, each fragment of memory carrying stories, laughter, tears, and quiet moments preserved carefully through time. He moved slowly down the ridge, imagining himself walking through streets now empty, doors closed, windows shuttered, the pulse of life alive in quiet reflection. He paused at the center of town square, imagining the gentle brush of wind across empty benches, the faint murmur of memories carried softly. He walked toward the horizon where mountains met sky, imagining the final sunset illuminating rooftops, streets, and desert sand, the soft glow casting long shadows, painting the town in gentle amber and rose. He paused to reflect on all he had seen, heard, and imagined, the rhythm of life threading steadily from forge, saloon, mine, cemetery, and homes, the pulse of community, labor, love, and memory preserved quietly in each step. He wrote in his notebook, tracing the essence of Silver Vein. Every street, every building, every whisper of wind carries the heartbeat of this town, a rhythm of life, labor, memory, and quiet endurance waiting to be remembered. He stepped back from the edge, imagining the desert stretching endlessly beyond, the faint sound of wind threading through ruins and streets, the pulse of history alive in imagination. He paused briefly, lantern raised high, imagining the final rays of sunlight touching rooftops, wagons, and rusted iron. The soft hum of memory threading gently through dust and shadow. He whispered softly, "I see you, I hear you, I carry you forward." And the wind seemed to respond, rustling through streets, rooftops, alleys, and open plains, carrying the heartbeat of Silver Vein, its forge, saloon, mine, and cemetery alive in memory, imagination, and the quiet persistence of those who had lived, loved, worked, and dreamed here, waiting for someone willing to see, to listen, to remember. And as the sun dipped completely below the horizon, painting sky and desert in deep hues, he felt the gentle pull of time, the tender weight of lives preserved not in buildings, tools, or stones alone, but in imagination, in remembrance, and in the quiet act of honoring the past. And he took a slow, steady breath, feeling the final sunset of Silver Vein settle gently into the quiet rhythm of memory, carrying him softly into the night, into peace, and into rest.